Welcome back. This is another exciting episode of Mr. Takeda Teaches Algebra. This is the Math 8 edition, and I'm your host, Mr. Takeda, and I'm going to teach you some algebra right now. This is lesson 4.2, an extended lesson from 4.2 on the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. In the last episode, we talked about what slope was and how to find it or how to calculate it. But now we're going to talk about some cases where lines are parallel and or perpendicular. Well, they can't be and perpendicular, but whether lines are parallel or if lines are perpendicular and what that means for the slopes. So get ready and let's go. The first idea, of course, is that we know that parallel lines are lines that do not intersect, right? We already know what parallel lines are, but non-vertical parallel lines have the same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. We learned yesterday, or we learned in the previous lesson, that vertical lines have no slope, but they are also parallel. Okay, so vertical lines are parallel, but they have no slope. All other lines are all other parallel lines have the same slope as well. Okay, so let's take a look at what that means. So in our first example here, which two lines are parallel and how do you know? Now, it's hard to kind of see these, and maybe in the picture here you could kind of see which ones are parallel or not parallel, but we have to calculate the slope in all of these. Okay, so I'm going to calculate the slope for the blue line. I'm going to use this as the first point. So I'm going to 2 minus negative 2, my change in y, over negative 3 minus negative 4, my change in x. All right, so this is actually 2 plus 2, which would be 4. This is actually negative 3 plus 4, which would be 1. So the blue line has a slope of 4. For the red line, 3 minus negative 2 over 1 minus 0. Okay, so 3 minus negative 2 is like saying 3 plus positive 2. Remember, we're going to keep, flip, change. 3 plus 2 is 5, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So the red line has a slope of 5. Now, the green line, we'll do the same thing. 1 minus negative 3, and then 4 minus 3. All right, so 1 minus negative 3 is like saying 1 plus 3, so that's 4. And 4 minus 3 is 1, so the green line has a slope of 4. So which two lines are parallel? The blue line and the green line. How do I know? Because they have the same slope. All right, so that's how we're going to do that one. Get this in your notes. I don't know if you can do colors in your notes, but anyways, that's how we're going to calculate these slopes. You don't even have to have the diagram. You just have to have the points, and you can still, again, calculate which ones are parallel. Perpendicular lines. Now here's where things get a little trickier here. Perpendicular lines, of course, are lines that meet at a right angle. They cross at 90 degrees. So let me read this sentence first. Two non-vertical lines are perpendicular when their product of their slopes is negative 1. Okay, so what is that going to mean? The slopes are going to be opposite and reciprocal. Opposite means if it's that positive and negative are opposites. Reciprocal would mean like some number, x. Let me use n so we don't confuse those things with the x's and y's here. N, and then 1 over n is reciprocal. Okay, so slopes are opposite. When one of these has to be positive, one has to be negative. We learned about that the other day. And reciprocal. That means if I was to turn a whole number into a fraction and flip it upside down, or if the slope was already fractional, turn it upside down. Because if I multiply those together, I'm going to get a 1. All right. Vertical lines are perpendicular to horizontal lines. So again, vertical lines have no slope, and horizontal lines have a slope of 0. So we really can't do this to it. But vertical and perpendicular lines are horizontal, just like the x and y axes here are perpendicular. All right, so let's take a look at the same thing here. Which two lines are perpendicular and how do we know? Let's go ahead and demonstrate this here. The blue, I'm going to go 6 minus 4. I'm calculating the slopes. 6 minus 4 over negative 5 minus 1. That's 2 over negative 6. So that's going to reduce to negative 1/3. All right. The red line, 0 minus negative 2 over negative 5 minus 2. All right. So 0 minus negative 2 would be like positive 2. And negative 5 minus 2 would be like negative 7. So this would be negative 2/7. And then for the green line, I'm going to go 5 minus negative 2. And I'm going to go 0 minus negative 2. So 5 minus negative 2 is like saying 5 plus 2, which would be 7. And 0 minus negative 2 would be like saying 0 plus 2, which would be positive 2. Right? So this one has a slope of 7/2. So which two lines are perpendicular? It would be the red line and the green line. So let's take a look at these slopes and see if we can explain opposite and reciprocal. They're opposite because one of them is negative and one of them is positive. Okay, so when we say opposite, we mean one has to be negative, one is positive. When we say reciprocal, well, it's again, you can see the fraction 7/2. If I flipped it over, if I swap the numerator and denominator, I would have 2/7. If I multiply, here's what this really means though. If I multiply negative 2/7 times 7/2, negative times the positive is negative. 2 times 7 is 14. 7 times 2 is 14. Opposite and reciprocal means it's going to, if I multiply them together, I get negative 1. Okay, that's just the check. That's what I'm just trying to explain here. But we can look at these and see that these are opposite and reciprocal. And that's how we know that we will have perpendicular lines. Okay, so that's it for this little short mini lesson on slopes and parallel and perpendicular lines. I'll see you in class. Get these in your notes. This was a lot of good information here. And we'll do this again in class. And have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.